April Eve Nitsekhasun. I really am very grateful to the Women for Rights and Empowerment for asking me to come back and speak. It's been a couple years now. I guess I'm going to share something with you tonight, something that happened to me about 4 weeks ago, and it's really in line with why we're all here tonight. So my name is April Eve, and I am many things. I'm the mother of 2 beautiful children. Okichital, my son, he's 4. My daughter could be here tonight. Her name is Kinanila. I'm also a member of the Mi'kmaq Cree First Nation, Treaty 8. I'm also the great-great-great-granddaughter of the late Chief Mi'kmaq Martin and Headman Thomas Jabot, who both signed Treaty 8 in 1899. I'm also a survivor of commercialized sexual exploitation and other abuses. I'm the daughter of a residential school survivor. I'm also your sister. And I guess what happened to me 4 weeks ago, I haven't fully processed it yet because I'm still kind of reeling from it. So yes, this is my truth on that. So I live in the north side of Edmonton, and I was to attend a community meeting after a work day. So I was getting ready for the meeting, and the meeting was over at the Chianti restaurant on White Avenue. And the meeting I was attending was for the 3rd annual Walk a Mile in a Ribbon Skirt event. And so I was just thinking about, what I was gonna say at the meeting and just get our planning underway. And so when I got to White Ave, actually step back, on my way to White Ave, because I live in North Edmonton, I drove down 97th Street, then cut through downtown Edmonton and across, and I've seen at least 8 of our Indigenous sisters suffering on the streets in vulnerability. And when I see our sisters like that, it helps me in the way that it just reminds me that we all need to keep going in this fight, right? And so I thought about them, and I thought about the meeting that I was attending, and that's all I was thinking in that moment. So I get to White Avenue, and it was after 6, so I knew I could park on the street for free. And I also thought it might be a little safer to park right on White Avenue because there's more light, lots of people. So I'm about half a block away from Chianti restaurant. I get out of my vehicle, kind of dressed like I am now. Got my clipboard, shoulders back, chin up, and I end up passing the Tim Hortons. There's a Tim Hortons kind of in the middle of the block. And as I was approaching the Tim Hortons, I had noticed that there were 2 men on motorcycles, and one of them, I caught his attention. And I have to read this out to you because, again, I'm still kind of processing what had happened in that moment. But as I got closer to them, to pass them to get to the restaurant, the one guy said to his friend, he's like, "Oh yeah, look at that," in a very sexualized but violent tone. And I knew he was directing it towards me. And then he says to his friend, "What's that? What's that effing?" I'm going to say effing out of respect for the elders and the children in the room, but I think you get the gist of what word he had used. "What's that effing thing? Look at that effing thing. Oh yeah." And so I knew in that moment that they wanted me to react. So I didn't react. I kept my shoulders back, chin up, but inside I was shook. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me on my way to a community meeting. A meeting to bring Indigenous and non-Indigenous people together to celebrate culture and to educate about the importance of the ribbon skirt and to help in some way dismantle racism and violence against our people. So I go to the meeting. Meeting's about 2 hours. I leave the meeting. I kind of figured that these guys were gone, which they were. And I get to the vehicle, and I broke down. I thought, oh my God, I don't consider myself a role model, but some people do. Why didn't I stand up for myself in that moment? And then I thought about who I was in that moment. I wasn't who I am today. It brought me back to a very traumatic time when I was a child, being abused, a child that had no voice. And that's what I kind of went back to in that moment. And then I thought about these men. What kind of men are these? They thought there was nothing at all wrong with talking to me that way. And what about the bystanders? There was a couple that were maybe 2 feet in front of me. They said nothing. There was other people that I don't know if any of you are familiar with that Tim Hortons on White Ave, but there's tons of people around. Nobody said anything, right? And then I thought about my sisters that I've seen on the way to the meeting. And I thought about, what if that had been them, right? What if they would have reacted? Would they have been followed? Would they have been beaten? Or worse, right? Yeah. And then I don't know, I just had so many emotions going on. But then I told myself, be gentle with yourself. You in that moment needed to keep yourself safe. And you will address this because it isn't right. And we know this happens all the time. It happens all the time. And there are members of our society, like those men on motorcycles, that thought it was totally fine to talk to me that way. And I thought more about those men. And I thought, you know what? They didn't like what they seen. They don't know me from a hole in the ground. They don't know I'm dealing with intergenerational trauma, that I suffer from self-esteem issues and other like mental health conditions. They don't know when I go out into public, I put this brave face on. They don't know what I deal with. But what they saw that day was a proud Indigenous woman on her way to a meeting, and they didn't like what they seen. And I told myself, keep going. Because those types of men in our society, we are phasing them out. It's a slow process, but time's up. Time's up to those men. So I guess, you know, the message is what we have to keep going. And don't let these types of setbacks and traumas stop you from doing what you're most passionate about. Keep gathering, keep speaking out, keep supporting others in this fight. It's a long road, but we have to keep going. So keep going, warriors. And sorry for the shameless plug to the organizers, but we are still going ahead with our 3rd annual Walk a Mile and Ribbon Skirt event. It'll be at West Edmonton Mall this Saturday at 1 p.m. in the 4th phase, and we encourage everyone to attend and please join us in solidarity. My son Oki, unfortunately he's not feeling well. I would love to be out there chanting with you all because I love to chant, but I'll be there with you in spirit. Thank you for holding this space tonight and allowing me a safe space to share my truth. And I wish you all love and peace and safe travels back to your home fires. Hi, Kanana Skulptor.